And as you can clearly see from the data before you, esteemed council members, Earth is, without question, a Class 13 Deathworld. Admiral Keptar stood at the center of the Galactic Council chamber, his forearms gesturing emphatically at the holographic display. His purple skin glistened with nervous sweat under the harsh lights. The chamber, filled with representatives from over 600 sentient species, erupted in murmurs and clicks of disbelief. Order. Order in the council. The High Arbiter, a gelatinous being named Blob, not actually Blob, but the closest human translation that wouldn't rupture your eardrums, pulsated with authority. Admiral Keptar, the council recognizes that you have devoted your career to xenoanthropology, but surely this classification is excessive? The classification system for habitable worlds was relatively straightforward. Class 1 planets were paradise worlds with perfect climates, no predators, and fruit that practically jumped into your mouth. Class 5 was the galactic average, some weather variations, a handful of predators, but nothing a modestly evolved species couldn't handle. Class 10 worlds were generally avoided extreme climate shifts, aggressive fauna, unpredictable geology. No one had ever classified a world beyond Class 12 before. With all due respect, High Arbiter, Keptar continued, I've personally reviewed the data 7 times. The planet hosts 5 active extinction events in its geological history. It has a corrosive atmosphere that literally dissolves spacecraft. The planetary water, which covers 70% of the surface, is so hostile it breaks down molecular bonds. And the dominant species. The Admiral paused for dramatic effect. They drink acid for pleasure. A representative from the Chlorian Federation fainted, their gas mask fluttering pathetically. Admiral, interjected Counselor D. Vex of the Centauri Alliance, perhaps your instruments were compromised. No sentient species could evolve on such a world, let alone achieve spaceflight. Keptar sighed. He'd anticipated this reaction. I present to you the recorded first contact incident with human Lieutenant Commander Rexley Monroe. Computer, play footage. A new hologram appeared, showing a human female in a white uniform, grinning at the camera. She had short auburn hair and an expression that, unbeknownst to the aliens, screamed I didn't have enough coffee this morning to deal with extraterrestrial diplomacy. May the gods help us all, Keptar whispered. The footage timestamp indicated it was recorded 3 standard cycles ago. The setting, the Galactic Union's first official diplomatic vessel to approach Earth orbit, the harmonious convergence. Welcome aboard, Lieutenant Commander Monroe, said a slightly younger Admiral Keptar, extending his upper right hand while his lower hands nervously fidgeted with his uniform. We are honored by your presence as Earth's representative. Call me Rex, said the human, grabbing Keptar's hand and pumping it with alarming force. Everyone does. And holy shit, real aliens. This is so much cooler than my last assignment babysitting ice core samples in Antarctica. Several council members gasped at the casual profanity, which their universal translators struggled to properly contextualize. The recording continued as Rex was escorted to the diplomatic chambers, where representatives from 12 species awaited. The human paused, sniffed the air, and zeroed in on a steaming pot on the refreshment table. Is that coffee? Her eyes widened. Ah, yes, said a reptilian diplomat, whose nameplate identified him as Ambassador Hist. Our research suggested this beverage is important to human diplomatic functions. We synthesized it based on your global data networks. Rex beamed. You guys are the best. I've been up for like 30 hours preparing for this meeting. The council chamber collectively shuddered as they watched Rex pour the black liquid into a cup, add nothing to neutralize it, and drink it directly. Wait, she said, frowning slightly. This tastes a bit off. Admiral Keptar in the recording looked alarmed. Our chemical analysis showed the beverage contains a compound humans call caffeine. It's a neurotoxin and insecticide. Yeah, Rex shrugged, taking another sip. That's the best part. This batch is just a little weak. Mind if I see your recipe? The footage showed Ambassador Hiss turning a pale green. You intentionally consume insecticide? For pleasure? Well, yeah. How else am I supposed to get through a Tuesday? Rex laughed, then noticing the silent horror around her, added, Oh, come on, it's not that weird. It's not like I'm drinking gasoline. What is gasoline? Asked a silicon-based life form nervously. Fossil fuel. We used to put it in our cars before we switched to electric. Though, honestly, some mornings I could probably drink that too. The diplomatic chamber erupted in chaos. A small, furry delegate began screaming, They power vehicles with liquid dinosaur remains. Another diplomat promptly vomited a rainbow of colors onto the polished floor. Rex, looking genuinely confused, turned to Admiral Keptar. Was it something I said? The current Admiral Keptar paused the footage. What you've just witnessed was only the beginning. After the coffee incident, Lieutenant Commander Monroe attempted to lighten the mood by discussing Earth's weather, which includes acid rain, lightning strikes containing 5 million volts, and wind formations that can level entire settlements. Impossible, shouted a council member. I wish it were, Keptar replied grimly. When we expressed our horror, the human laughed and said, Wait until I tell you about Australia. After first contact, the Union assembled a specialized team to properly assess Earth's classification, Admiral Keptar continued. Leading the scientific research was Dr. Vix Nara from Proxima b. A hologram appeared of a tall, slender being with iridescent skin and 6 delicate fingers on each hand. Vix Nara appeared to be wearing 17 different protective suits layered on top of each other. Dr. Vix Nara is our foremost xenobiologist and possessed the strongest immune system in the Union. For security, we assigned Officer Gronk. The hologram shifted to show a massive, boulder-like entity with crystalline protrusions for arms. Gronk's species evolved on a high-gravity world with constant meteor bombardment. He was, theoretically, indestructible. Both volunteered believing their natural adaptations would protect them from Earth's hostile environment. Keptar paused, his voice dropping to a somber tone. They were wrong. The footage shifted to the assessment team's shuttle landing in a location identified as Central Park, New York City. Rex Monroe stood waiting, wearing casual Earth attire jeans made from processed plant fibers and a t-shirt declaring INE. Welcome to Earth, Rex announced cheerfully. I've got a whole tour planned. Figure we'd start here in New York, then hit the Grand Canyon, maybe Yellowstone, then finish up in my hometown in Florida. Dr. Vix Nara cautiously exited the shuttle, scanners beeping frantically in all 17 layers of her protective gear. Lieutenant Commander Monroe, our scans indicate the air here contains nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor, carbon dioxide, and thousands of particulate pollutants. Oh yeah, city air, Rex shrugged. Not the cleanest, but you get used to it. And please call me Rex. Officer Gronk emerged next, his crystalline form glinting in the sunlight. This solar radiation is intense. How do you endure such bombardment? Rex pointed to her face. Sunglasses. And sometimes I put goop on my skin. PS30 usually does the trick. You combat solar radiation with eye coverings and goop? Vix Nara's scientific translator seemed to be struggling. Sure, want to get hot dogs? I'm starving. The footage cut to a montage of the assessment team's increasingly horrified expressions as they documented Earth's innumerable hazards. Vix Nara recording in a shaky voice, Day 3. The humans consumed fermented toxins in darkened rooms while vibrating their bodies to rhythmic sound waves at dangerous decibel levels. They call this clubbing. It appears to be a mating ritual. Another clip showed Officer Gronk staring in disbelief at a weather report. The humans are tracking a Category 5 hurricane approaching their eastern seaboard. When I suggested immediate evacuation, several laughed and mentioned something called a hurricane party. They intend to celebrate the arrival of this devastating wind vortex. The council chamber watched in stunned silence as the footage continued. Day 7, Dr. Vix Nara reported one of her protective suits visibly missing. I have contracted something the humans call the common cold. They assure me it is no big deal and have offered a remedy called chicken soup, which contains boiled avian remains. Officer Gronk has begun to develop small fractures after participating in something called a pickup basketball game with local humans half his size. Admiral Keptar paused the footage. Within 2 standard weeks, both Dr. Vix Nara and Officer Gronk requested emergency extraction. Vix Nara lost 3 of her 17 protective layers to something called subway turnstiles, and Gronk, whom we believed indestructible, was nearly incapacitated by what the humans termed a mild case of food poisoning after consuming something called a street vendor hot dog. The assessment team's data only grew more disturbing as their mission continued, Admiral Keptar said, shuffling through his notes. Let us review their findings on Earth's most alarming features. The holographic display flickered to a chart titled Earth Hazards, a partial list. First, Keptar began, Earth's core is molten metal, creating a magnetic field that barely shields its inhabitants from cosmic radiation. Occasionally, this superheated core breaks through the crust in events humans call volcanic eruptions. Footage showed Vix Nara and Gronk staring in horror at Mount St. Helens, while Rex casually took selfies with the volcano in the background. When informed these eruptions can destroy entire civilizations, the human replied, and I quote, "Yeah, but the sunset colors are amazing afterward." The council collectively shuddered. Earth's tectonic plates, Keptar continued, constantly move, causing earthquakes. Humans build massive structures on these shifting plates, then act surprised when the structures collapse. The footage showed Vix Nara examining a seismograph. This indicates a 4.0 tremor occurred yesterday. Surely you evacuated the affected areas? Rex, sipping another coffee, shrugged. Nah, we don't really notice anything under a 5.0. Just part of living in California. The footage cut to their visit to a region called Australia. The assessment team's psychological evaluations began showing severe strain during this portion of their mission, Keptar noted grimly. On screen, Rex cheerfully pointed out various Australian wildlife. That's a blue-ringed octopus. Venom can kill you in minutes. Oh, and those cute little guys are funnel web spiders. Their venom can melt your internal organs. And watch out for that plant. It's called a jimpy jimpy. If it touches your skin, you'll feel like you're being burned alive for about a year. The camera panned to show Gronk, who had encased himself entirely in a protective crystal shell, rocking back and forth. Vix Nara was frantically spraying disinfectant in all directions while hyperventilating into an oxygen mask. And the humans? Asked a horrified council member. The footage shows a human child nearby, barefoot, eating an ice cream cone and completely unconcerned, Keptar replied. When Dr. Vix Nara asked Rex how humans survive in such an environment, she responded, and again, I quote, "Oh, you just don't touch the deadly stuff. Usually." The Admiral advanced to the next hologram. Perhaps most disturbingly, humans have adapted to consume substances that would be lethal to most sentient beings. They flavor their food with capsaicin, a chemical weapon that causes burning pain. They deliberately spoil milk to create cheese. And alcohol, a substance they consume for recreation. is the same compound they use as fuel and disinfectant. The footage showed Rex introducing the assessment team to something called a Taco Tuesday party. Vix Nara's sensors were frantically beeping as Rex offered her a jalapeno popper. Just a little spicy, Rex assured her. Great with margaritas. Vix Nara's skin briefly turned transparent before she collapsed. Gronk, attempting to help, accidentally ingested something called guacamole and spent the next 8 hours in what humans call a bathroom. The final report from our assessment team, Admiral Keptar said solemnly, led to an unprecedented crisis in our planetary classification system. The holographic display showed the formal report header, Earth Assessment, Final Classification Recommendation. Earth was initially classified as a Class 10 Deathworld based on remote scans. Dr. Vix Nara's team upgraded it to Class 12 after their first week. By the end of their mission, they had created an entirely new classification, Class 13. But you said Class 13, maybe 14, interrupted Counselor D. Vex. Keptar's expression darkened. I'm getting to that. The display shifted to show the Union's Central Classification Bureau, a massive complex of bureaucrats meticulously categorizing every known planet. Alarms were blaring, employees were running in circles, and one administrator appeared to be eating classification forms in panic. The Bureau wasn't equipped to handle a Class 13 world. Their forms only went up to 12. The entire system crashed, taking with it 70 years of carefully organized data. The footage showed Bureau Chief Administrator Plognar collapsing into a heap of tentacles as underlings desperately tried to reboot the central database. While the Bureau was in chaos, Keptar continued. A diplomatic crisis erupted between the Arcturian hegemony and the Rigelian Confederacy. Both claimed mineral rights to the Cygnus asteroid belt. War seemed imminent. The council chamber tensed. Everyone remembered the crisis. As the Union scrambled to prevent war, Lieutenant Commander Monroe was visiting the Central Diplomatic Corps on an unrelated matter. When she overheard the situation, she casually suggested. The footage showed Rex, now in uniform, leaning against a doorframe. Why not just pulverize the asteroids and let both sides have the resulting debris? On Earth, we call it the Solomon solution. Cut the baby in half. The diplomats stared at her in horror. Cut a baby, one whispered. Figure of speech, Rex clarified quickly. Nobody actually cuts babies on Earth. Well, except for C-sections, but that's different. Before the aliens could process this new terrifying information, an aide rushed in. Both sides have agreed to the solution. The crisis is averted. How? Demanded a senior diplomat. We told each side that humans might intervene if they didn't agree. Both immediately signed the treaty. The footage cut back to the Bureau, where Chief Administrator Plognar was reviewing new information with trembling tentacles. Humans don't just survive their death world, they thrive on it. And they've somehow leveraged their terrifying reputation to resolve a diplomatic crisis without firing a shot. This cannot be accounted for in our classification system. Plognar dramatically raised a tentacle stamped with official Bureau ink. I hereby propose a new classification, Class 14. A world so deadly it produces species that the rest of the galaxy finds inherently terrifying, yet inexplicably useful. Admiral Keptar stood solemnly before the council. That brings us to today's proposal. The holographic display showed a new classification chart. At the very bottom, past all other categories, was a special designation, Class 13 to 14 Earth. Approach with extreme caution and/or coffee offerings. The Bureau's final assessment concluded that humans are not merely survivors of a death world, they are shaped by it. They've evolved to not only endure but exploit the deadly features of their planet. Their bodies neutralize toxins. Their minds thrive on risk. Their societies are built around controlled danger. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? Asked the High Arbiter. High Arbiter, esteemed council, I propose we create a special diplomatic corps composed entirely of humans. When conventional diplomacy fails, when crises seem insurmountable, we send in the humans. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. You want to weaponize humans? Asked Councillor Devex, aghast. Not weaponize, Keptar corrected. Utilize. Their unique perspective, forged in the crucible of a Deathworld, allows them to see solutions where we see only obstacles. The final footage showed Lieutenant Commander Rex Monroe, now promoted to captain, standing before a dozen humans in specialized Union uniforms bearing a new insignia, a coffee cup with crossbones. Welcome to the 1st Terran Crisis Response Team, Rex announced to her team. Our job is simple. When the galaxy thinks something's impossible, we make it possible. When they think a situation is deadly, we treat it like Tuesday. A young human raised his hand. Captain, what's our first assignment? Rex grinned. The Xenon Collective is threatening to unleash a quantum singularity in the Andromeda sector, unless their demands are met. That would destroy half the sector. Someone gasped. Exactly, Rex nodded. But they've never dealt with humans before. She picked up a thermos. I've packed coffee. The real stuff, not that synthesized garbage. Any other questions? The team exchanged excited glances. One cracked her knuckles. Another adjusted his sunglasses. All right then, Rex said, heading for the door. Let's go explain to the Xenon Collective what happens when you threaten humans with a little black hole. After Australia, that's practically a vacation. The footage ended, and Admiral Keptar addressed the Council one final time. Since the formation of the Terran Crisis Response Team 3 cycles ago, they have resolved 17 impossible situations, averted 3 wars. And somehow, through means I frankly find too terrifying to investigate, convinced the notoriously hostile Zorgon hive mind to open diplomatic relations. Their methods are unorthodox, often incomprehensible, and occasionally involve what they call aggressive karaoke battles. But they are undeniably effective. The High Arbiter's gelatinous form rippled thoughtfully. And your recommendation, Admiral? I recommend we formally classify Earth as a Class 13 to 14 Special Asset World and expand the Terran Crisis Response Program. With appropriate supervision, of course. And without supervision? Asked the counselor nervously. Admiral Keptar shuddered. Then we might discover why humans call their own history one damn thing after another. And I, for one, am not prepared to find out what comes after Deathworld Classification 14. The Council voted unanimously to approve the motion. No one wanted to be the one to tell humans no. Besides, as Captain Rex would say, what's the worst that could happen? Actually, no one wanted to find out the answer to that either.